Hello, my name is Dr. Joseph Ornato. I'm professor and chairman of the Department of Emergency Medicine at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. And I'm here today to tell you about some exciting findings of a National Institute of Health sponsored study called RAMPART. Virginia Commonwealth University and the city of Richmond were participants in this study, along with 17 other major medical centers throughout the United States. The objectives of the RAMPART study were very simple. They were to determine whether a new form of treatment for people who were having seizures was as effective or possibly more effective than the standard intravenous therapy that's used in the hospital and used by paramedics throughout the country. The new therapy was a very similar medication, the difference being that it was injected by the paramedics into a muscle rather than having the paramedics have to start an intravenous line and inject the standard medication through the intravenous. So the study was designed to see if the route of administration, that is, injecting into a muscle, was going to stop a seizure as quickly or possibly even more quickly than the standard therapy given through an intravenous. The practical problem for paramedics when a patient is seizing is that the person is shaking violently. So it becomes very difficult for them to control the shaking movements and to start an intravenous. In fact, in as many as 30 to 40% of cases, paramedics are unable to even start an IV in the field and have to transport the patient with ongoing seizures to the nearest emergency department, where the doctors and nurses try very hard to start an IV as quickly as possible. So you can see that in some cases that would result in a delay in stopping the seizure. Now, when a seizure occurs, what happens is the brain waves become very disorganized. The person becomes unconscious and they shake violently. The quicker we can stop the seizure, the better it is, because the longer a person has seizures, the more likely it is they may suffer brain damage from that episode. So this study is a very important study in trying to determine if an alternate form of therapy, namely injection into the muscle, works at least as well as starting an intravenous and administering a standard therapy. The drug that was used for the intravenous is the standard drug that's used in most emergency departments and hospitals. It's called lorazepam, and that was the drug administered intravenously. The newer drug that was tested was called midazolam, and it's very similar to lorazepam. Both are fully FDA approved for treating seizures, but the midazolam is injected in a muscle. The paramedics use what's called an auto-injector, very similar to what's used in an EpiPen. That allowed the paramedics to inject the medication very quickly. Midazolam is absorbed very well and very quickly from the muscle, whereas lorazepam and many other drugs like it are not absorbed as well from the muscle. And that's the reason why midazolam was chosen as the muscle-administered drug in this study. Now, as I indicated, the RAMPART study was conducted in 17 sites throughout the United States. Virginia Commonwealth University and the city of Richmond were very proud to be participants in this study. This study was conducted under what's termed community consultation and exception from informed consent. This is a very special process that the Food and Drug Administration and Health and Human Services allows for conduct of study on subjects who are subject to an emergency that makes them unconscious or unable to give the standard oral and written informed consent. This process is a very well-structured process and involves informing the community in advance of the study to get their opinion on whether members of the community, particularly individuals who either have the disease that's being studied or are knowledgeable about the disease being studied, give their feedback to the institutional review board at each institution that has the responsibility to review and approve the ethical conduct of the study. In RAMPART, we had 225 community consultation activities in the various sites that conducted this study throughout the country. 43 unique institutional review board committees wound up approving this project. Now, for the most important part of this presentation, the results. It turned out that the treatment with the muscle injection worked beautifully. 73% of patients who received the muscle injection of midazolam had their seizures stop before they arrived to the hospital emergency department. That compares to only 63% of patients who received the standard intravenous lorazepam having their seizures stop prior to arrival at the hospital. In other words, the muscle injection proved to be not only as good as the intravenous, but actually turned off more seizures more quickly than did the standard intravenous therapy. We also found that patients who got the muscle injection were less likely to require hospitalization or admission to an intensive care unit compared to those receiving the standard intravenous lorazepam. The most important part of this study is that it has tremendous implications for our paramedics and emergency medical services units throughout the country and throughout the world, because now we have a proven therapy that can be administered very quickly by paramedics into a muscle, and we know can turn off seizures as quickly or more quickly than the standard intravenous therapy. Finally, the safety of this intramuscular injection proved to be as good as the standard intravenous therapy. So there really was no downside to this approach at all. In fact, as I've indicated, we believe that in the very near future, this will become the standard form of therapy for seizure patients in the field. Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like further information on this study or you have any questions, the information for contacting us is on the slide. Have a wonderful day.